Preston Ebner checking in for Smith. Ebner split wide left. Chapin looking up top. He's looking for Ebner. Ebner's open. He has it. Touchdown Bears. A 61-yard score.
This is the Sikkim 365 Radio Sugar Bowl pregame show.
Offset with Smith in the backfield on 2nd and goal. And instead, they come around with the tight end. Ben Sims takes it in.
Our Sugar Bowl coverage is brought to you by Ideal MRI, Edward Jones Investments agents Ben Erlinson, Tom Albers, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott. Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. The Willis Law Firm. American Bank. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. Genco Federal Credit Union. Camille Johnson Realtors. Automatic Chef Canteen. BetUS.com. Coach's XXX Smoke Barbecue. Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat.
Raced him to the pylon and made sure he came up inches short.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Well, it's a day in Baylor athletics history that is rather interesting, and the number 1 ranked and defending national champions Baylor men's basketball team has given this fan base a jolt to start the day with a tough, gritty win. One that absolutely was never easy against Iowa State, 77-72. Their 9th consecutive win against a top 10 opponent. And now everyone focuses in here on New Orleans, the Sugar Bowl, and Baylor football. And Ole Miss will kick off later on tonight. We're going to take you up until around 5:30 with the pregame show inside the media headquarters at the Marriott in the Arts District here in New Orleans. Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina, David Smoke, and again, Jack McKenzie, Armstrong Sims in the background. Oklahoma State has wrapped up the 37-35 win. They were down 14. They kick a field goal to go up 9. They give up a late score and beat Notre Dame to go 12-2 this year. One hell of a year from Mike Gundy. Not quite what they wanted, but that's a nice win as well for the Big 12.
I wonder if Marcus Freeman will regret not punting late at his 12-yard line and giving them the ball back so they could kick that field goal.
I don't know why. I know you don't want to give up the ball. You're down by 6. If you punt with 3 timeouts, you still have a chance to get the ball back. But maybe you were going to get the ball back basically there, but you'd have 4 downs or more. But it's a nice win. It was 28-14, and I kind of didn't pay attention to it for a while watching Baylor men's basketball. And Craig, Oklahoma State represents the Big 12. They're going to finish, no doubt, inside the top 10 with the win against Notre Dame.
Paul, I would imagine anytime you blow a lead like that, there's going to be a few things you regret. I'm sure that will be at the top of the list. Spencer Sanders was fantastic. Had over 500 yards by himself, 4 touchdowns through the air, over 100 yards on the ground, nearly 400 in the air, just 17 incompletions on 51 attempts. And so that's a massive game. I mean, I don't know what the fantasy numbers would look like for that, but I would imagine they're pretty big. So brutal loss for Notre Dame. I mean, they looked like they had that one pretty much wrapped up and just couldn't tie the bow. And big-time credit to the Cowboys. That's a big win for the Big 12. That's big for a Big 12 team to finish at 12-2. Would be even bigger for the champs to finish with 12 wins as well if Baylor can take care of business against Ole Miss. But, been a pretty fair, bowl season for the Big 12. WVU didn't look very good. Iowa State obviously couldn't seal the deal and weren't, really playing well into their little rally. But outside of that, there's been some good moments like the Oklahoma win and the Tech win and so forth. So now it's up to Baylor, and we'll see what they can do later on tonight. But, tremendous win for the Cowboys.
It was, and you mentioned Spencer Sanders, and I'm telling you, 371 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. He was not bailed out. It was a great play by Tay Martin late in the game to make a catch that kept a drive alive that eventually they fumbled. But Sanders had 125 yards on the ground, so nearly 500 yards. And Oklahoma State, 235 yards rushing, 371 yards passing, nearly 600 yards. No, they did have over 600 yards. 606 yards against what is a pretty proud Notre Dame defense. Cone threw for 505 scores but had a pick. But Oklahoma State does win 37-35. Up next, Ohio State, Utah in the Rose Bowl. Also today, Arkansas beat Penn State 24-10, Kentucky 20, and Iowa 17 in the Citrus Bowl in Florida. And Baylor men's basketball, it wasn't easy. We will get into Baylor and Ole Miss in football, obviously, here just a second. Baylor men's basketball, at one point, it looked like they were about to pop that bubble open and, 10, 12, 14 points, but they really struggled with turnovers, free throw shooting a couple of times, and give Iowa State credit. They're so much more improved, and that's a team that's going to beat some people down the road. And Baylor, though, bottom line, they're unbeaten and they win again.
Baylor's still the best team in the country right now, and probably stays that way for a little bit. But the Big 12 is improved. Not just Kansas getting better and Texas getting all their transfers, but Iowa State's better, and the league's taken a step up from this year to last year. So maybe Oklahoma State takes a little bit of a step back because you can't just make another Cade Cunningham, out of clay in the ground. I mean, those guys don't come along all that often. But it's good. It's a good league, and there's going to be more games like this year than there were last year for this team, because it has really nothing to do with Baylor, losing the guys they did, because they're still great. But the league is getting a lot better.
I don't mean this as a shot. I'm sure somebody will probably take it that way, but it's a moral victory. Another one here lately for Iowa State. They're a lot better than they were expected to be at this point. So I think you do walk away from that game and feel good about the fact that even though you lost, you competed. I mean, Baylor definitely got into some foul trouble and couldn't seal the deal on certain occasions to kind of just wrap that one up early as they had opportunities to. But that's part of, the Cyclones and the way that they played. So, again, have to give them a lot of credit. They're definitely going to be a team to watch throughout the rest of the way, and these teams will meet again in Waco and maybe even another time in the Big 12 championship tournament. We just have to see. Texas got a nice win today over West Virginia, and it's a tremendous league. I don't think there's any doubt it's the best league in college basketball. I think that's very clear at this point, and going to be interesting to see kind of how it all goes here over the next few months.
All right, so some of the chat room, and we have been in and out. You've heard us, or some of you have been in and out. Of course, sometimes during what we're doing with our show, you've been on vacation, or we've been kind of hitting and missing with different travel schedules and people having some time to decompress. So we appreciate you being a part of the show today. We'll take you up until 5:30. So some of the chat, just to kind of Scotty B right off the top, 1-0 today for Baylor with basketball winning. From Hayden Johnson, thoughts on the Fiesta Bowl, which we just gave you on Oklahoma State's win. Miles Thurman, let's go. Big Oklahoma State fan, yes, sir. And then also Bears 22. Scotty, the Baylor King, is a legend. Let's go Bears. Bear 22 in the chat room as well.
I don't know if it was somebody. I don't know if it was one of the people you just mentioned, like Matt or Scotty. I did see somebody, and I can't recall exactly who it was, that said that they thought that Baylor men's basketball winning at Ames would be a bigger win than the Sugar Bowl, and I could not disagree anymore. Agree to disagree on that, but I did see that earlier, and I thought about it for a moment, and I just immediately was like, no way. I mean, no way, because Baylor men's basketball could lose in Ames today, and they're still going to be perfectly fine. There's an entire season left to play. It's just your first loss. It doesn't mean a whole lot, really, in the grand scheme of things. It puts you behind the 8 ball at 0-1 in Big 12 play, which wouldn't be good, but you've also got, 17 more games to play after that.
Yeah.
for the Baylor football team to win a Sugar Bowl, it'd be the first time ever to have 12 wins in a season. That alone makes it more important. Be the first Sugar Bowl victory since what?
Since like forever
since
ago.
Pre-World War II, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, so again, so to win a Sugar Bowl, which you haven't won in decades, to beat a team like Ole Miss, who's a top 10 team that would ensure that you finish top 5, top 10 at worst, and then to be the Big 12 champs and have 12, all those firsts and all what would happen. Not to take away from the Baylor men's basketball team, and that was a terrific win, but the Sugar Bowl would be way bigger in my mind as far as potential wins today.
It's really not a discussion.
No.
But again, everyone has a right to their opinion. You might be more of a basketball fan, but if Baylor wins the Sugar Bowl, had Baylor men's basketball lost, it stings if you're a Baylor fan, but at the same time, as Craig said, you have the rest of the year. Here's Marshall Burns. Sure would be sweet to start the new year with a couple of top 10 matchups today with Sikkim. Also, from Bear 22 again, was caught rooting for Oklahoma State today. Big 12 showing out as clear number 1 conference in all of college sports. From R. Webb, Sikkim men's basketball, Pistols firing Oklahoma State football. Time now for Baylor, BU football to finish the job today. And also Jeff Grimm, Alabama. What a huge win. Dominant, physical, methodical over yesterday's Cincinnati, which we discussed while we were on the air. Rooting for Baylor today and also against his SEC brethren as well. And there's a few others. John Hammond. Not all SEC fans cheer for every SEC team.
That's good to know.
Not all Big 12 fans cheer for every Big 12 team either.
Most don't.
And in fact, it's kind of almost been where there's there's a couple schools that no one cheers for very much, especially one in Austin. Texas Gunslinger, SEC media sucks. That's why SEC fans have to come here. Thank you very much for that. And so we appreciate your time. Let's see. Texas Gunslinger, at least the Big 12 is competitive. The SEC is a bunch of chumps. Well, they do have. Now, listen, they've had a
title game.
They've had a bad bowl run. There's no question. And I don't know what happens tonight with.
I'm gone. Sorry.
With Ole Miss, but at the same time, we do know this. They have 2 teams playing each other for the national championship, so they're going to win it again, and they've won a ton of them already. So.
Well, and they were very clearly the 2 best teams. If you wanted to make a case for the BCS, these would have probably been the 2 teams, and probably the 2 teams that rightfully deserve it. Georgia was very impressive. Cincinnati gave it a go, but it was just clear Alabama was a much better team. I'd be curious to see if Cincinnati could have gotten that punt return if – the fumble punt, if they could have somehow turned that into an even tighter game. But, Alabama dominated that game from start to finish for the most part. Cincy did a good job of keeping it close. But Bama was the better team. And then, last night, Georgia, clearly the better team than Michigan. That one was even worse of a blowout. That one was not even close at all, and I was pretty shocked, not by Georgia winning the game or even winning it by double digits, but the way that they won it and how much they won it by. That was a little surprising, but hats off to the Bulldogs, hats off to Roll Tide, and that should be one heck of a rematch. At least I hope it is. I hope it's better than that first game.
Well, it was a dominant win. Georgia, that was impressive. It's as if they took their woodshed moment against Alabama, and they have been focused on getting back to playing perhaps Alabama, and now they get that opportunity. But they hammered Michigan.
I didn't think Michigan would score. I didn't think that would
before the game.
Yeah, I didn't think they would score that much.
Oh, I thought you said they were going to get shut out.
No, I didn't think they would score that. They almost did. But I didn't think they would score a whole lot of points in the game. I thought it would be relatively close. What I was surprised about was that Michigan's defense against an offense of Georgia, which is good, and but it's not. They had more playmakers a couple years ago on the offense when they were here, as far as guys who could kind of rip it up. This team was built on the defense, but what was absolutely true to form was no matter how good their offensive line is, and the Michigan offensive line is good, they have not seen a defensive line like Georgia's all year because there's only 1 or 2 of those in the country, and they're playing each other in 10 days. But they had not seen that. The best team that they played all year was Ohio State, whose biggest weakness on their team was their defensive line this year for the first time in forever for Ohio State. So even in that game, because they ran roughshod over Ohio State, ran straight at them all day long and beat them very badly. So they were not ready for Jordan Davis and his brethren. They just weren't ready for it.
Well, and they were, according to voters, a certain segment of voters, Michigan had the best offensive line in the country. They were the Joe Moore Award winners. And I don't know what extra award you create for the Georgia defensive line then in that case, but they're clearly, the best defensive line in college football. I'm sure Alabama would have something to say about that, although they've kind of been shaky at times. But again, both teams looked great. They both deserved to be in the championship game. I know some people probably have SEC tired head, but this is what it is. Cincinnati had their crack, couldn't get it done. Michigan had their crack, couldn't get it done. So you can complain about it, SEC and SEC and SEC, but until somebody jumps up and beats them, then that's what it's going to be, and two teams had their chance yesterday, and clearly the two teams from the SEC were better, as much as we probably, get tired of saying that as outsiders to that conference. But, you got to give it up, and, tough blow. I know Jim Harbaugh said this is just the beginning for Michigan. We'll see. Obviously very disappointing loss, and Luke Fickell was obviously torn up as well. Yeah. Special run for them, and, who knows when they'll have a run like that again, but hopefully they do, because, they're going to be a part of the Big 12 soon, and hats off to them on a tremendous season.
We're not here. We're on location in New Orleans and have been here since Wednesday, and you hear all the sponsors on the early part of each hour, plus in the commercial breaks, and we'll be here till 5:30. There'll be a post-game show as well here. Thanks to Avery Bowerman. She's been fantastic, along with her staff here at the Marriott in the Arts District in New Orleans. And we appreciate you. The text line's popping. I love it. Or the chat room is popping. I love it. It's been kind of like we've missed you, and hopefully at times you've missed us as well. And we're kind of getting back again to what we need to do. And then again, starting Monday, we'll do what we do. And so, but we're not done today. From Warzone Clips, the new Big 12 will be the best basketball conference, not football, but basketball. Double O'Neill, thank you. Hit the like button as much as you possibly can. And then also, let me see here.
I agree with that because, right now it is the best basketball conference. And, yes, Texas is a very good team that you'll be losing, and Oklahoma is a solid team that you'll be losing. But the four you're bringing in, Houston Final Four team last year, and they're doing their thing. I know they got a couple injuries. Yeah, they got injuries right now. They're going to be, potentially costly. But, BYU and UCF and Cincy, I'm very much looking forward to that new conference in hoops. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be really good in football too, but especially in basketball, no doubt.
Phil Venzer, the Mountain West, by the way, 5-1 in bowl game from Double O'Neill. SEC has 2 to 4 good to great teams. The rest are really just average, not as good. And it kind of sometimes they go 5, 6, 7 deep. They do, and then sometimes they might go 2 to 3 or 4 deep. As far as elite teams, really top 10. And Ole Miss has a chance to be a top 6 or 7, 5 or 6, 7 team if they beat Baylor tonight.
Well, I do think that if you went ahead and took out when you're looking at conferences, like for the sake of saying what's really even, take out the juggernaut in each league, and then I think you do have true parity outside the juggernauts. And so that's why people with SEC, well, if you take Alabama out of it, yeah, they got some good teams, and Georgia's really good right now, but LSU was good a couple years ago. But consistently year in, year out, there's really only one team that's the juggernaut, and that's Alabama. So they're skewing the numbers greatly in favor of the SEC, but really when you look at it, I think everybody's pretty much the same.
I think the SEC is still the best conference. I think to say otherwise is foolish, and I understand that, there are people. I saw that debate last night. I don't know how I feel on that just yet. I do think that A&M could be, with a quarterback. And again, you could do like, well, if they had this and they had this, but, I do think A&M is a lower top tier SEC team or mid tier, and I do think they're probably better than mid tiers in a lot of other leagues. But yeah, if you sliced it one by one, there's weaker links that probably get propped up a little bit to be made to look better than they are because of conference affiliation. But you can't deny the results, and I am very curious to see when Saban eventually does go away, whenever that is. I'm not rooting for him to go away anytime soon, but when he is taken out of the equation, I don't believe there's anybody in the world that you could hire that's going to be able to duplicate that success. And I do think that they have kind of carried that flag for over a decade now, and they do, sway the overall feeling because of just how good they in particular have been. But now, if Georgia goes out and win the national title, and they'll get it done against Alabama, then you got to say, like, hey, there's another team that's consistently been doing it. But, I see that argument a lot, but I don't know. Some of it comes across as just kind of, I don't know, wanting to negate their greatness. I do think it gets overblown quite a bit, but you can't deny the results.
They're going to win another national championship.
I'm not trying to negate their greatness.
I'm not talking about you.
Yeah, but I think that like you do when you're making the argument about the depth of the SEC. That's legitimate what Craig said. But like when you talk about how much better they are than everybody else, part of the thing is when we've talked about it, they've got the best PR machine. So
I don't. It's an argument because we love college football, and sometimes I think there's no question, even when their bowl teams overall maybe 2-5 or whatever they're going to be, or 3-10 or 6-7 or 10-3. It's different, and especially with some of the things that we now see in college football. But they are playing two teams again. A national championship, and Alabama's about to try to win their 8th for Nick Saban. That's
I will say,
just bizarre. It's hard to fathom it could be 8.
I saw somebody bring this up, and again, I can't remember who it was, and I do agree with it vehemently, is that last night, after all those bowl games were over with, all you saw on SportsCenter was a preview for the national championship game and replays of those two games. And it's like, there's other leagues and other bowl games and other teams, and they get like 2 seconds of airtime, and then you're already onto a game that's not being played for 10 days. Like, you're already previewing a game that's 10 days away, and I think that's where part of that PR machine does sort of come into play a little bit, and it doesn't give the spotlight to as many other teams. And I understand that's the semifinal games, and they're going to get more exposure, but it's like, can we take a breath and, like, maybe look at the other bowl? And
there were some media critics that were saying exactly what you were saying. At halftime of the Oklahoma State Notre Dame game, they're talking about a game in 10 days. And I even, if you're an Alabama and Georgia game, you may want to just be able to have a deep breath and think about something else. Phil Venzer, Hawaii now up to 20 players in the transfer portal.
Wow.
Here's from Jeff Grimm, and Jeff's very much, he's an Alabama fan. He loves the SEC, but he's also very level-headed. First of all, he said, I hope you guys are at Irene's. He said, the SEC has 4 strong teams, 4 teams that compete pretty much with anybody, and then 6 that rides the top the coattails of others. It's
I agree with that.
And that's a really good point. Now, do we have that? Okay. Baylor men's basketball just beat Iowa State. It's been about an hour or so to go. 19 straight, unbeaten this year. Defending national champions, we know that. They just knocked out another unbeaten team in Iowa State. Texas's win against West Virginia was also incredibly impressive. Hammered the Mountaineers 74-59. But Ashley Hodge, one of the partners of this website in the umbrella of Sikkim 365, had a chance to get a real quick hit with Scott Drew in the postgame.
This is Ashley Hodge. I'm with Sikkim 365. I'm joined by the national champion, Coach Scott Drew, number 1 team in the country, and they will stay number 1 after a great road win. Hilton Coliseum, my first time here, sold-out environment. Maybe that didn't get the best whistle tonight, but 77-72, the Bears beat Iowa State. What were some of your thoughts? I mean, Baylor was up 13 and then kind of gave away a little bit of that margin at the end. But
well, coaches are always frustrated when anything doesn't go well, so I wish we'd operated better at the end of the game. I'll take responsibility. I had a lot of close games, haven't worked enough in practice to prepare for that, so we'll do a better job with that. As far as getting a win on the road in the Big 12, just what you said, hostile environment. Obviously, when students are back, it's even more hostile. But usually, this is what happens. You get teams that play real hard, compete. Yep. They usually get to the line, and you got to do a good job playing without fouling and doing a good job rebounding. And I thought second half especially, 16-10, second chance points was huge for us. And then controlling their three-point shooters. They were 1 for 14 from 3. Wow. And we were 7 for 17. So I thought we had some good looks, and we did a good job contesting theirs.
Yeah, and the shot of the game, as far as my opinion, would be up 5. Adam Flagler hits a late shot clock 2 from the elbow, and that just gave us the separation that was critical at that time because they had a lot of momentum going into that possession. Would you agree that was?
Yeah, most definitely. First of all, every possession is critical in Big 12 play, but that one was huge. Yeah. And they get the ball, come down, have a chance to make it a one-possession game. You don't want that on the road. Anything can happen, as you see in college basketball. So the fact that he made that, and then we had enough cushion where we missed some free throws, and missed the front end, missed a couple. But when you have a lead like that, you can do that. I thought that was huge.
19 in a row. Next up is Oklahoma. We need Baylor fans at the Farrell Center Tuesday night, right? We need him there. We need him loud. Yeah, and hopefully the Bears go 2-0 today. A Sugar Bowl win would be nice for the football team. So
Sick of them. Let's go. I was texting Coach Aranda.
All right, that's Scott Drew with Ashley Hodge. Baylor wins 77-72. And we'll get into, the Rose Bowl's next, Utah and also Ohio State. I actually did see one of the comments last night from, there's so many on Twitter, and I'm getting further and further and further away from really paying too much attention to it, myself included, is that, Ohio State would have played a better game. Yeah. They got hammered by Michigan, right? I mean, it wasn't matter. Like they weren't humiliated. Games have to matter. Stop. That doesn't mean matchups can't be different. I get all that, but that's just so. It was a media member, and I wish I could have remembered who it was. I was like, come on. The Michigan-Ohio State has to count. It's almost like there are certain games that you don't want to count because it doesn't fit what you want. And So like Baylor and Ole Miss wins, they'll be ranked higher than Baylor, and they should be ranked higher than Baylor if they beat Ole Miss.
Or it's almost
if they beat Baylor.
Or it's almost like we just give certain teams, because we just say they're elite no matter what, we just give them unlimited mulligans, or some people think that we should. Yeah, it shouldn't matter that you got your ass kicked by Michigan. That was a game that we knew when it was being played at the time was for a spot, and Michigan kicked their ass, ultimately when it was all said and done. They won that game, and Michigan got that spot. And, I'm sure Ohio State probably could have gone to the playoff and put up a better showing. But that's why the games, like you said, have to matter. Ohio State could have done that, but Ohio State should have beaten Michigan. Ohio State should have won all their games, and then they'd be in there. But I get that. It's easy to say hindsight's 20/20, but if we do that, then every year we're just going to line up the same four teams. And look, the same four teams are all practically getting in it anyways.
Yep.
But, when they don't go perfect wire to wire, then there has to be some penalty for that.
Well, do we forget the reason that we finally got to this playoff was because LSU got no reward for beating Alabama?
And winning
They got no reward for it. They got no reward for beating Alabama and winning the conference.
Oh, yeah, they did. They got to go to the playoff.
Well, they got to the championship game and play them, but, it was, that was their, but it wasn't, the reward should have been, hey, you guys beat them. Don't play them again.
Yeah, done.
That's it.
Move on.
That's
it's not best of 3.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
I have a question I want for the chat, and we can throw that out there for the rest of the way. Do last night's, and chat, get ready to rip on this, and whoever else, does last night's semifinal games make you think that expansion is more important?
Great question.
Or is it just a sign that expansion is not going to do anything but just make a bunch of other blowout games? Because at least you'd guarantee the 4-5 game would probably be pretty salty and certainly better than the 2 games we saw last night. But was that a better showing for the expansion wanters, or is that more of a detriment to those that want expansion?
I'm torn on this.
I think that expansion will make everything better because everybody will have the ability to say that they've got a chance, and eventually it's a long road. It's not going to happen the first couple times out. And what I worry about is because we're such a microwave immediately something society, is that the first couple of college football playoffs, 12 teams might suck. And suck hard. And people are like, see, we should have done it. This is happening and blah, blah, blah.
Bring back the BCS.
But the minute that, Alabama gets beat because the number 1 team gets upset, then it's all going to be worth it.
Yeah.
For that one time out of 10, it might happen, or 15.
I want to clarify what I said. I want the expansion. I want more playoff teams. I do want that. I want that. But I don't know if it's going to make a difference in the scores of the teams we see play.
And it may not, especially not in the short
term. So what?
But what's the difference in Alabama beating the crap out of Michigan versus beating the crap out of the number 8 seed or whatever? Same result's going to happen probably either way, right?
So,
you have more upsets that way if it's expanded, yes, because more teams get in and there's more of an opportunity that somebody slips up, right?
Well, again, sometimes. And I'll just take Alabama out of this equation because, they're the outlier of all outliers. The run that Alabama's been on
it's unfair to,
right now is something that it's going to be hard to be equaled in college football once Nick Saban's gone, because he is has cornered the market on everything. And everybody else who comes up and gives him a run is they're there for a minute, and then like LSU, they kind of go away for a minute. Georgia, as good a coach as Kirby Smart is, will probably go away for a minute because that's just the nature of the beast. So taking Alabama out of it,
you're going to be on there. You're going to be on a bulletin board,
and just talk about 2, 3, 4.
You're right, though. Alabama is an outlier. They kind of twist everything.
So they're an outlier. So take 2, 3, 4. Take the third team. Let's take Michigan, for example. If Michigan's scored good 4 years in a row, and the one matchup that they really don't want to have is like that number 10 seed who can throw the ball because they don't have good defensive backs, and that matchup happens, and Michigan gets upset. The number 10 team may not beat Alabama. They may not beat the other teams in the 4, but in the top 4. But if they get that one matchup, then it makes it that much better.
I want expansion for one reason. I want winning a conference championship to matter. I want that to matter. And right now, it doesn't. It really even sometimes you can not win it or even be in it and make the playoff, and that's fine if you're one of the elite teams. I want conference championships to be played that matter. Winning the game against Oklahoma State for Baylor, it mattered. It would have mattered for Oklahoma State, might have gotten them in the playoff. But it really, all that did was just give you a better bowl game to go to, but it didn't matter the chance you have a chance to win a national title. And if a team that's 7-5 wins it, or teams that upset people, that's fine. You still have the at-large burst for the others who might get shocked in the finals in the conference title.
Well, look, what if the NFL had the same policy, and because Rex Grossman was terrible, even though that Bears defense with Lovie Smith was one of the best of all time, you're like, we don't want to see Rex Grossman play against Peyton Manning. Let's put the team with a better quarterback in. That's just not. Yeah. It's just.
Yeah, and if March Madness was only 16 teams and we just took only elites, now I know basketball's different and there's more powerhouses and there's, a lot of those non-football conferences that have basketball powerhouses, but how does a 1-seed Virginia get upset against a 16-seed a couple years ago if they don't ever get the opportunity? And I know most years the one kicks the crap out of the 16, but in certain years you get the right team, the right matchup, and the right timing, and it could, create chaos, and that's why we love March Madness. By the way, Utah up 7-0. They're on the board first.
Here's the thing about if you had 16 and there was once 16 and then there was 32, there are times you would not even know Cinderella. There would still be a couple of them in the tournament, but if it was 32 and not 64 or 68, there may not be. You may not have allowed Gonzaga to get in the tournament and initially kind of be a feel-good to now where they are one of the monsters, the 800-pound gorillas that are around in the room. You would not have had maybe NC State and Jimmy Valvano. And I don't know how many teams were in the tournament the year that they shocked Houston to win the national championship, or George Mason, or Richmond, or Homer Drew and Valpo, and what they did with the Scott's brother.
Is Baylor men's basketball the powerhouse has become without taking their lumps in the tournament over the past few years?
I don't
Absolutely
think so.
not.
No.
You kind of sometimes teams have to do that, but I'll ask it again for those that may have missed it. I don't know. I think Armstrong put up a poll question, but the two semifinal games last night, because I know we got to probably take a break here in a second, does that lean you for more expansion? Or does it make you go, no, we don't need more expansion?
I think, to put it simply, just the fact that there might be blowouts all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing you can do to control that, but to have the opportunity to do that. And again, like you said, would Scott Drew's story be the same had he not taken, and not only taken some lumps, some embarrassing lumps. Georgia State was embarrassing. I mean, that could have scarred a lot of people for life, the way that you blew that game in Jacksonville, and they came back and did it. So who's to say that if it's, I'm just going to say it's Houston. Houston's in the Big 12. They start getting some momentum, and they're the 12th seed in the playoff, 5 out of 8 years. And then finally in that 8th year, the 5th time, they break through because the other 4 times they didn't. Okay, I'll give you another example. Clemson. Would Dabo Swinney be as popular and strong as a coach right now had Clemson not stepped on their own so many times in games before he grew as a coach and before that program grew in recruiting? Probably not.
And 12-year-olds think Clemson's like an Alabama that's always been that way, and they haven't. They've been that as the last few years, several years, but that wasn't always the case. No.
All right. By the way, one other note, somebody asked about the FCS. They're in the championship game. It will be Saturday, January the 8th, a week from today. Montana State and North Dakota State. Ooh. North Dakota State is in the championship game. So that moves on. For the FCS champions, that's the FCS championship. and that game's at 11 o'clock in Frisco, up in the north part of Dallas and Fort Worth. When we come back, we're going to hear from Baylor head coach Dave Aranda. We'll also hear from a couple of other
I was going to say North Dakota State is just a powerhouse.
They're Alabama of the FCS.
Yeah, I know Montana State's got a good program too, so that should be a great game.
Of course, I know Sam Houston State did win it earlier this year, which was fantastic, but North Dakota State for the last decade has kind of run that for the most part, with a few other teams along the way that have interrupted that, just like Mary Hardin Baylor owns Division III and won it again this year. This is Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
American Bank has been serving Waco since 1952, and we're just getting started. Hi, I'm President and CEO Dana Hassel. Over the past few years, we've been busy investing in new technology to give you the best banking experience possible. We've also expanded our downtown branch and built 2 state-of-the-art buildings at our Woodway and Bellmead locations. With bright open lobbies, plus fast, personal, interactive teller machines, everyone in Waco is now just minutes away from face-to-face banking. Visit us today and see how we're invested in serving you at American Bank. Member FDIC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
This is the Sikkim 365 Radio Sugar Bowl pregame show.
Under 2 minutes to go, the opening quarter. Sanders pressured off for the fake and throws another interception. Matt Jones picked it off.
Call us on the Bet US hotline, 254-339-1122.
Back in New Orleans, Louisiana, the Caesars Superdome. One of those drone pictures from Jack McKenzie, who was roaming New Orleans in many ways. Paul Catalina, David Smoke, Craig Smoke, and also Jack McKenzie, Armstrong Sims. And the chat room today, love it, man. It's going back like it used to be before all the breaks and stuff like that. The college football playoff has got a lot of people discussing what's going on right now. Derwake, the fact is the SEC has been riding on Alabama's dynasty for a decade. It's gotten out of control. Mainstream media involved because of the money. The SEC isn't that deep. Texas Tech showed that. And they did. And you're right. I think what happens, though, and there's that bubble I talk about in the top 10, 15, or 20. Now, Ole Miss could be 3 of the top 5, 6 teams if they win tonight. So they have good and elite teams. The problem is a lot of the midsection is really like what you don't want to see when you get older, a midsection. It's kind of just there.
But they get propped up because they beat on each other. Yeah. And so, like Auburn's treated as though they're, an upper tier, even though it's like, no, they're the middle of the road. And probably some years they are the middle of the road. But, you do have to point to it's not just Alabama that's won titles. It's also LSU. It's also potentially Georgia. It's also been Auburn. It's also been Florida. So it's like, name another conference that's had that many different teams in the last 20 years win that many different, win titles. That's nearly a handful of your league. But I do think that on a year-to-year basis, much like Notre Dame immediately being a top 3 to 5 team and kind of being anchored there, as I saw somebody put it earlier, which is a trend that needs to go away, but probably never will. There is definitely the rising tide lifts other boats as far as the attention they get as well, and that's certainly the case in the SEC more so than anybody else. Because you're not going to see if Baylor wins tonight after Oklahoma State's win and what Oklahoma did. You're not going to hear anybody talking about the Big 12 and if they were underrated. You never hear that about any other conference, and that's where the media attention, especially from the folks up in Connecticut. And I understand the business tie-in. That's where it does get a bit ridiculous at times. I mean, it really does, to the point of nausea. And that's where people start to have their minds go crazy over how it's propped up. I will agree with that.
All right, we have Dave Aranda yesterday broke that. I saw a comment. We'll have that here in just a second. And we're working on getting a player from Baylor as they're stuck in traffic in Iowa on their way to the charter to get back to Texas.
There's traffic in Iowa?
Yeah.
Mike Gundy.
It's 20-something, 15, 10 degrees. Oh, yeah. It's icy, snowy.
Mike Gundy called that win today the biggest win in Oklahoma State history, football history.
I mean, what else?
What else is there? Like,
point of comparison, he would know. Look, he's been there a long time, and he's an alum, so he's well versed in it. And look, winning a New Year's Six bowl, beating Notre Dame, and Notre Dame only had one loss this year. And it was to Cincinnati. That was a really, really good Notre Dame team. Now they're kind of like every other Notre Dame team, where they're really, really good, but they're not great. And when you can beat the Golden Domers anytime, and not only beat the Golden Domers and do it when you were getting absolutely,
you're down 21
at a point in the game, and then come back in the second half, and it almost looked to me like nobody told Oklahoma State the first half it happened.
I think it's great that when you can lose a heartbreaking game the way Oklahoma State lost to Baylor, and that could have sent you into a spiral. You had time to get through it. You had time to even clear it. It would have been interesting what would have happened if they had to play again the next week, and I think that they're just really good, and they would have probably been fine. But that is a big time. That's interesting, and that's great. Good for Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State. I don't know if beating Ole Miss tonight in the Sugar Bowl would be Baylor's biggest win ever. I think you could still go back to some of the wins that got you to where you have been the last 10 years, including even back in the 70s. We can go into that, but man, that 600-plus yards against a pretty proud Notre Dame defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they were at it. 254-339-1122. Again, we're live in New Orleans, the Marriott Arts District here in New Orleans, leading up till we'll go to 5:30, and then a couple hours after that kickoff between Baylor and Ole Miss. Paul?
Steven from Virginia, I know he's going to call in, and he's been brainwashed by J.D. Piquel, and I'm worried for his overall health. What's up, Steven?
I was definitely brainwashed by the fact that I sat in a room of red-blooded American male men last night with primetime football games on, and nobody cared about any of them. And this idea that adding 8 more teams is going to make that the games 5 through 12 might be interesting, but Alabama just did that to Cincinnati, undoubtedly the number 4 team in the country. Georgia just did that to Michigan. Doesn't really give me that much confidence in Baylor, going up in that spot against Georgia. And I've heard a lot of people saying, well, the Giants beat the Patriots. And you know what? The Giants had Hall of Famers on their teams. But when Alabama and Georgia and A&M and Ohio State have 4 classes in a row where everybody, the average recruit, is a top 100 player, and then you are a school with maybe 3 or 4 3-day picks on your roster, or third-day picks on your roster, it's not the same. And this idea that, UMBC beat UVA, so it's all cute, and, we should do this, that happened once in 80 years. Once in 80 years will the underdog beat somebody, and otherwise it will be crap football. Like, this idea that it's just going to give everybody a chance, unless you start, like, making the best recruits, like, start thin out where they go. You say you can only go, Alabama can only have 10 5-stars. Then it will be even. Otherwise, it's not the same. It's
Steven,
fine.
how did Alabama lose? How did Alabama lose? They lost to A&M, right? They're like 8-4. So it can happen. I understand A&M's got a lot of. You're telling
First of all,
me
A&M doesn't belong in that. I mean, I know you're talking about recruiting, but those are three, blue blood national champions.
Ohio State, Alabama,
they got to prove
Georgia,
it with their recruiting. They've recruited well, but they haven't proven it yet.
Yeah, but
you can't have a chance if you're not in the game.
No,
Exactly.
and look, it was very fatalistic what Steven was saying, and it was like, oh, this is going to be bad. It's going to be this. Well, I hear that argument about a lot of things, like, hey, if we, improve the power grid, it's going to be really hard. Oh, let's not do it and just burn. No, anything worth doing is hard, and it's going to be hard. There's going to be some games that are absolute donkey crap. It's going to be bad. It's already donkey crap sometimes. So, yeah, but there might be some good things. There might be some things that grow, and if you want to have a whole crop of things grow and more 5-stars go other places, if you're telling the 5-stars that there's really only this handful of places you can go to do every single thing you'd want to do as a kid in college football, then that crop's not going to grow. It's not going to be big. It's going to be a nice little garden. Well, now you're having an opportunity to have a big crop of something. And
how could Cincinnati eventually get a 5-star? By playing in the playoff and maybe beating an Alabama.
Yeah.
And that's how the program has to rise. Like, the thing is Alabama has made it so twisted. But by the way, the team that everybody said last night should be in the playoff, even though they shouldn't deserve to be in the playoff, they're down in 14-0 now to Utah, by the way.
And when was I talking about matchups?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so what can't Ohio State do? Stop the run.
Yep.
Can't do it. What does Utah do exclusively? Run the ball straight at you.
Well, they actually haven't been running the ball today. Rising's had a hell of a game, but at the same time, they're up 14-0. You cannot have a chance. You can't get a dance if you don't ask for one. Mm-hmm. But in this case, you earn one, and the chance is that you could have another Boise State inside of the playoffs, or you could have something like that inside of the playoffs. You know how the U was. What kick-started the U? What kick-started the U? Their dominance for 20 years. Beating one of the most dynamic, unbeatable teams in college football in the 1983 Nebraska Cornhuskers. Yeah. Now, the game was in Miami. Doesn't matter. They won the game, right? That win kick-started their dynasty. If they don't win that game, they might still get better, but they weren't going to have an immediate dynasty jump like they did in the 80s, 90s, and early in the 2000s.
The thing I wanted to ask Steven, but I can now, is what's his alternative then? Just leave it the way it is? Go back to the BCS? I mean, at least we're trying to find a way to make it more competitive and fun. And I know you use my one example. My one example is just that example of the 16. But, I mean, I'm talking about March Madness in general as well. There's 12-5. There's all sorts of upsets in the first round. It's not just the one example that I gave of the 16. I know that was the extreme one, but there's plenty of other examples every year. You don't want to do that? You don't want to even see the possibility of doing that? You mean a 6 couldn't beat a 4 in the college football playoff? That we just got to resign ourselves to the top 4 are always going to be the best? I mean, Utah's a team I wanted to see in the playoff if there was an expanded playoff, because I do think that they could go in there and maybe disrupt things. Do I think they could go beat Alabama? No, not necessarily. But do I think they could maybe have given them a better run than some other teams have? Yeah, absolutely, because it's about timing and those types of things. But no, last night we just wanted to put Ohio State in because it's Ohio State. They're down 14-0. They might come back and win, but I almost cursed there. But shoot, what's going on right now? We'd never see it because nobody would let Utah even have the chance to do it.
Also, Alabama is one boneheaded decision from not being in this game.
Yeah, that's true.
Not being in at all. If Tank Bigsby just falls in bounds, I mean, then Alabama's not in this, and who knows what we're talking about today.
So, I mean, again, this is why the playoff discussion is actually more interesting than the playoff itself. I mean, that's the part that they have to figure out. That's why we're talking about it again, and that's why, again, I'll ask the people out there, did last night's playoff games make you more for expansion or less for it? And clearly for Steven, and that's fine, you're not for more expansion. I don't know if you still want the 4 or if you'd rather even just go back to 2 or what. And you know what, in a year like this, maybe it would have been just Alabama, Georgia anyways. I mean, they clearly look like the 2 best teams, but maybe the other 2 teams that made the playoff weren't actually 2 of the best 4 teams. You know what I mean? Maybe Utah right now is one of the best 4 teams. How would we see that? Well, we can't see that in the top 4 because, well, technically they had this or that. Well, if we had an 8 or a 12, guess who'd be in there? Utah, and then maybe we'd see that.
And maybe they would be hot, and they would get hot, just like the Giants did to win a Super Bowl one year.
And maybe not, but what would be the difference?
Yeah.
You're mad about extra games being played? I've seen so much conversation from college football media. It seems like they hate the sport. Like, they want less college football. They're arguing for less bowls that clearly matter to certain teams. That mattered to Houston to win 12 games. It will matter to Baylor to win 12 games. It will matter to Ole Miss to win 11 games. But there's some people that would rather not have that. Why? Just so we can hurry up and get to Alabama. I don't get it. Why are we rooting for less? Why, I don't understand. Every other league's getting bigger and bigger, but we're rooting for less.
I think the argument, not less when it comes to the playoff. There are sometimes you wonder about how many bowls there are. Are they just having bowls? But there's a reason.
But why does it bother people?
I don't know why. Because if you don't like it, just don't watch them. I don't watch probably 50, 60% of the bowl games. Half the time, I don't even know they're playing them. But guess what they are? What are they? The ESPN live content.
Yeah.
Remember that theme? Yeah. Remember that term?
That's the big thing. Yeah.
Live content that everyone kind of shot holes in. When I discussed the expansion of the Big 12, you may not like some of the teams. You may think they shouldn't go past 12 or live content. That's what they want. And that's what
on a fundamental level, it's 15 more practices too for teams that could use it.
And those games that we don't care about, we still turn them on.
No,
we put them on in the studio. When I'm at home and I have nothing to do at night, I put the game on. Yep. I don't care, quote unquote.
Yeah,
I'm still watching it.
But I'm watching it, and here's from Rich Boone. The legacy media does not speak or represent the majority of what sports fans want. Show this is show like this are the future. No, you're complimenting us. And we hope that one of the things you've learned is that we don't get stuck in the mud, although sometimes we do with various thoughts, opinions, whatever. We try to look outside the box of what is marketing 101. From the gunslinger, only recruiting. That Cincinnati game was really just Bama being bigger. Cincinnati D-line looks like Bama's running back. And yes, now that Cincinnati has made this run, has gotten all this attention, they should get even maybe better players. And what you do need in the SEC, one thing that they have been better at most of the time, year in, year out, and Dave Aranda mentioned this in an interview with me, maybe 2 months ago, is what they have on the defensive line. They've got dudes, man. They've got some alphas.
That was very clear in both games last night.
And it was very clear in both games.
Is Cincinnati better off as a result of playing in that game or worse? I'd argue they're way better off after having played that game, even if it was a bit of a blowout when all was said and done. They're way better off as a program, and then the Big 12 edition will only help that much more. So maybe Cincinnati's a team that they're never going to get 25 stars in a class like Bama does, but they could get maybe 1 or 2 that pop a couple extra 4 stars, that pop that special player that maybe you're not expecting to be great, that turns out to be one hell of a dude that's suddenly in the Heisman race, and like so on and so forth. So can't happen. That's why I'm interested to hear the folks out there and what their thoughts are.
All right, we're going to hear from L.J. Cryer of Baylor after their win against Iowa State on the road in Ames. We're also going to have Dave Aranda from yesterday. And I saw a comment. He was about 2 minutes into his media conference, a media session yesterday. He's about 2 minutes into it, and he already had kind of explained how the sun was built. It was somebody made that comment on Twitter. And yesterday, Jason King, who joined us, who was a huge Art Briles guy, and he hated Matt Rule, and he couldn't stand the changes, and it took him forever. And there's been a lot of – he has even admitted yesterday on the show that, man, he's in now. He gets it, and looking forward to it when it comes to what Dave Aranda is bringing to the table. From Steven, who's back on the chat room, he goes, keep all the bowl games, pay the players not to opt out of them, and sponsor money, and get to 2 or leave it at 4. That's what I want. That's from Steven. You want 2 or 4 in the playoffs. I think that's probably the minority. But if you're Alabama or you're Georgia, do you care if the expansion if the playoff championship playoff goes higher? Do you care?
It could be 86 teams. They're still going to be fine.
They're going to end up in the end most of the time. They're going to make more money. They're going to make even more money, and they already make all of the money.
Well, he does bring up an interesting point that I've seen talked about is wouldn't more playoff games keep more players from opting out? Mm-hmm. And don't you have this magical little tool now called NIL that could be a persuasive tool to keep more guys in bowl games? So, like, that combination alone could keep and make some of these other bowl games more interesting to where we don't see a team loses in the Outback Steakhouse Bowl, and they're like, oh, well, we were missing 20 guys, and they're already preparing for. I mean, that would have cut some of that off at the head because those guys want to play because it's a game that actually has more meaning outside of just being a mid-level bowl game. It's a mid-level bowl game that you could win that would be good / a game that could maybe move you on to the next round of the playoffs. But yeah, I think NIL is going to have to come into play where some of these bowl sponsors are going to have to, and I know they already pony up like the merchandise rooms and things like that, but with the money being thrown around now, I mean, that's certainly a direction you could look as far as enticements of keeping guys playing in bowl games that otherwise would just be ready to go off to the NFL. I don't know, though.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're still waiting for LJ Cryer, and I think it's because a number was different. And David Kay's working on that with us, with Madeline as well. Here's an interesting, let's see, Double O'Neill. Make the game matter. The players will stay. 10 conference champions and 10 opponents. Joey Kelly, this isn't a valid complaint. I'm not sure he's talking about, the playoffs. And then also Bleezy 38. He's an Ole Miss fan. Hotty toddy, right? Saying that Baylor thinks they're going to bully Ole Miss and it's going to be Ole Miss that bullies Baylor. That's the key to this whole thing.
I don't think Baylor thinks
we don't know what's going to happen. You hear about Baylor's running game, the offensive line, the defense, and that is absolutely that's evidence. That's not just like guessing. That's evidence, and we also know what Ole Miss is evidence. They have evidence of what they do well. And as Dave Aranda, as Ron Roberts said a couple of days ago, Baylor's defensive coordinator, Matt Corral, man, you got to put pressure on him, and then you could also, that could be the worst thing you do.
The defenses each have a matchup in this game that is a bit of a weakness for them. For Baylor, it's a mobile quarterback who can do everything that Matt Corral can do, and does that hit? And for Ole Miss on defense, their biggest problem is when big running backs, run at them and knock around a little bit. And Baylor has that. So, what pop? I mean, look, both of them might pop at the same time. We might get a game that goes back and forth, but these styles are too similar. If one team can, keep their style ahead most of the time, then that's the team's going to win.
Yeah, I don't think Baylor has thought at all that they are going to bully Ole Miss. I think you're maybe taking comments about the fact that they are a physical running football team and that's what they do, and a physical defense is them saying they're going to bully Ole Miss. But I have not taken that out of any comment. In fact, the only comment I've seen this week where I'd really say one side has said they're going to bully the other was from Ole Miss defensive back, who basically said they were going to be the more physical team. So, I mean, yeah, maybe that's been a comment somewhere. That's certainly not the impression that I've gotten. I think they're very aware of what a tough matchup Ole Miss is, and they're going to have to play a nearly perfect game because Ole Miss can be so explosive and score so quickly.
419, huge Cincinnati fan, has been with us all throughout the year on the text line. Cincinnati went 13-1, Houston 12-2, Oklahoma State just went 12-2, Brigham Young's 10-3, UCF is 9-4, and Baylor's trying to get to 12-1. If they actually win their 12-2, if they win their game tonight against Ole Miss. So we'll see what happens. Well, that's a pretty good chunk.
Good run.
And again, you want to say who the Big 12 is now. He was saying the new Big 12, which starts, of course, after the summer of 2023. Armstrong, let's take a break here, and if we get the call in from LJ, we'll put him on as soon as we can. We're live in New Orleans at the Marriott Arts District here in downtown New Orleans, getting ready for the Sugar Bowl tonight at the Caesars Superdome. This is Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
The 2021 Ram brand just received first place in the prestigious J.D. Power's Initial Quality. The Dodge brand finished second to Ram, and the 2021 Jeep Gladiator is rated first among all mid-sized trucks. The Big Finish sales event, only at Allen Samuels, 201 West Loop 340 in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
Texas board-certified personal injury trial lawyer and Baylor alum David Willis and Baylor alum Parker Willis are ready to help if you or a loved one has been wrongfully injured in an auto accident, SUV rollover, industrial accident, 18-wheeler crash, or were seriously injured by a defective product or recalled drug. Call them for a confidential and free case consultation at 1-800-GOT-HURT or visit them at texastriallawyer.com. Principal office located in Houston, Texas.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me.
Genco has extended their offer till the end of the year. Refinance your vehicle today at Genco with rates as low as 1.69% for 48 months. And have 90 days of no payments. Refinancing can lower your payment, so you pay less for your car. Apply online and get an additional 0.1% off our already low rate. You can't pass on rates this low and make no payments for 90 days. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice, subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
The year is wrapping up, sports bettors, but BetUS still has your NBA, NHL, college football bowls, UFC, PGA, and of course NFL betting lines up for their 27th year. Live betting on all of it. Log in to BetUS.com today. Use our promo codes SICK'em125 for 125% bonus on cash, or SICK'em200 if you use crypto. So use the 3-decade leader, BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'em125 and SICK'em200.
Masters of Barbecue, kings of crazy good food, and the perfect sanctuary for sports, beer, and barbecue is Coach's XXX Smoke on Austin Avenue in downtown Waco, and also on Highway 84 in McGregor. A menu filled with choices like a great offensive playbook, including 3 meat combos with sides, burgers, and sandwiches, wings, loaded giant spuds, and salads, crazy wings, chicken poppers, big boy fries, and smoking quesadillas, just some of their amazing appetizers. There's Coach Big Ol' Draft Beer, or order Zach's Spicy Bloody Mary, or Coach's margaritas and mimosas while watching your favorite team play. Great pecan smoked barbecue, fun atmosphere with attention to detail, including a catering menu, and we'll quote your price to fit your budget. Coach's XXX Smoke on Austin Avenue in downtown Waco, and walking distance to the great places to shop and enjoy, and also the original location on Highway 84 in McGregor. Great food, great price, great fun. Eat where the locals eat.
This is the Sick'em 365 Radio Sugar Bowl pregame show.
Dave Smith remains in the game. Here is Smith, head down and in. Abram Smith with his first touchdown of the game.
Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sick'em 365 radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
All right, we're back in New Orleans, Louisiana, 7:45. Around that time, the kickoff with Ole Miss and Baylor. But earlier today, Baylor Athletics with a critical win. It aims Iowa, the number 1 and defending national champions, unbeaten Baylor, knocked out another unbeaten team at Iowa State. LJ Cryer, who was huge in the game, joins us on Sick'em 365 Radio. LJ, that's a great atmosphere. Your thoughts about getting there, the win? I know the weather conditions are a little bit different, although they're playing it indoors. Just winning that game in Ames, what does it mean? Got him, Paul?
Yeah, I got him.
Big momentum going into the next game.
Okay, LJ, if you wouldn't mind, would you repeat that? We didn't have you on for a second. Just the importance of that win other than the obvious.
Oh, I mean, of course it's big to get a win versus the top 10 team. Feel like that's going to give us a lot of momentum going into the next Big 12 game we have.
LJ, I know that you missed a game or so, sitting out and getting healthy. What was it like for you to be back and seemingly locked? I mean, you were locked in a little bit. You seemed like you were ready to go.
Yeah, it felt like it took a little while for me to get going in the game, but it felt good to be back out there. It kind of hurts watching from the side, so just tried to embrace the moment today.
LJ, talk about the environment. Obviously, that's a tough place to play. The program's had some success there, Scott Drew especially as of late, but what was that atmosphere like in Ames?
It was a tremendous atmosphere. Whenever they made a run, it would get real loud. I could barely hear each other, so their fans were terrific.
You guys had to deal with the bigs being in foul trouble with Flo and also Jonathan Chamwa-Chachua. It went small, and it seemed like even when Coach Drew went small, because you had to, because they were in foul trouble, you guys even separated even more. Does it matter? And what's the mindset when you have to go either big, small, whatever? It seems like nothing rattles this team.
You kind of have the next man mentality, so whenever someone gets in foul trouble, feel like we got other guys on the bench that be able to come out and fill those roles while other guys have to sit. So I feel like everybody did a good job of being locked in today.
Do you think that's one of the things that you guys can kind of mess with teams a little bit in that, especially in that top 8 or 9 guys that you guys have on the bench, that whatever 5 are in the game can kind of morph into a little bit different style of basketball for a few minutes when you have to roll that, and your opponent may not be ready for it?
Yeah, I feel like that play in our favor just to give teams a different look because we got so many different lineups that we could put out there. So I think that'll give teams problems.
But nothing's ever perfect, but the win is the win. What were some of the things perhaps that Coach Drew and company said to you guys, or what you yourself saw that you have to get better at before you play again?
We got to take care of the ball better. We have way too many turnovers, and our goal is to get 11 or less. We were over 11 today, and then on the boards, when we're switching 1 through 5, we got to be able to, as guards, block out the big, stop them from getting offensive boards.
Is it minus like 1 degree? Is it 5 degrees? What is the temperature right now in Ames, Iowa, as you're on your way to the airport?
Last time I checked, it was 2, but it seems a little colder than that.
You ready to get back to Waco?
Yeah. It's going to be a little colder in Waco. It'll be, but
it's like it's going to be 40, but it's going to be 38 degrees higher than 2 degrees.
So I'm going to help you with this, LJ. It was one time -3. It's 2 right now. It's going to be -4 by 2 o'clock in the morning. So get the heck out of there. And it's not like it's all that warm in Texas, but it's a lot better than that. Did you bring the big coat?
I actually didn't. My big coat is at home in Houston, so I didn't have a big coat to pack with me. So I'm a little freezing out here.
LJ, last year obviously was a very fun ride, but you guys have done a great job of mixing in the newcomers and kind of not skipping a beat. How much fun are you guys having with this iteration of Baylor basketball right now?
We're having a lot of fun. Everybody's playing together. We're playing with joy, and then when you're winning, it doesn't get any better than that.
LJ, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. I know you've had to sit there and wait for your time, and you had a huge game today. I know that it was a great win. You have many more to try to get, and thanks for your time, and enjoy the trip back to Texas.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That's L.J. Cryer. Fran Fraschilla was raving about him. He was like the 5th all-time leading scorer in Texas high school basketball history and had to wait his turn, just like others have had to wait their turn. And others will have to wait their turn after L.J. Cryer eventually leaves, but until he does leave.
And he's still nursing a little bit of a foot injury, and Matthew Meyer wasn't quite full strength today, if it seemed like. I do have a couple of college notes, though, but Paul, go ahead.
14-7, by the way, Utah and Ohio State.
But he did. I thought he was I missed the earliest part of the game, so when he said he started slow, but when I turned it on, he buried a couple threes, and I thought, there's a guy who's itching to get back. And he missed, Northwestern State, so it wasn't like it was the worst thing in the world. But
they were 7 for 17 outside the arc, and Iowa State was 1 of 14. A lot of that was being cold. A lot of it was the fact Baylor's defense forced those bad shots, too.
It is funny, though, fans go, like I saw some Iowa State fans saying, well, if we just made like half our threes, and I'm like, well, Baylor made half their free throws. You know, like, it's easy to say, well, if we did all of this better, but they just stayed the exact same, we win the game. And it's like, well, you can't really do that, you know?
So I've thought up a thing that I think would be cool for fantasy football leagues to, like, balance that out. So, you know, if we could do all this, if you could make your free throws and all that, it's kind of like saying in fantasy football, like, okay, if I could have just played all the best players on my bench, well, then the other guy has to too, right?
Yeah, no, exactly right.
Iowa State has no reason to hang their heads. They're a lot better than expected, and they'll be a good team that beats some other good teams along the way. But, I did want to mention Ohio State's finally struck. C.J. Stroud gets him on the board, and he's looking like he's maybe starting to heat up a little bit, so 14-7. But also just saw where North Carolina quarterback Sam Howell has officially entered the NFL draft. He's made it officially known, so he's off to the NFL.
Baylor turned it over 17 times. They forced, I think, 19. They turned it over 19 times. They forced 17. They were 10 of 14 at the free throw line. The problem with that, a couple of the misses were front ends in the bonus, and you can't. You're not missing just 2. You're missing possibly 3 or 4. When we come back, Dave Aranda and our predictions on tonight between Ole Miss and Baylor, the Sugar Bowl here in New Orleans on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is the Sikkim 365 Radio Sugar Bowl pregame show.
Sanders throws too high and intercepted, and being run back by J.T. Woods inside the 10 and out of bounds. They're going to mark him right near the 10-yard line.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube.
5:14 is the time, and 2 hours and 30 minutes or so kickoff of the Sugar Bowl inside the Dome here in New Orleans, Caesars Dome. And I saw something today while running I thought was pretty cool, and I know we have to get to Dave Aranda. I was running back towards the hotel, and there's a tin, it looks like metal or tin, tree. It's a tree that was built out of pieces of metal. Pieces of metal that were shredded from homes or buildings or whatever during Hurricane Katrina. And propped up in this tree like almost deer antlers, this tree made of metal, was like a home that was in the tree. Like it was a reminder of how bad it was here in New Orleans.
I went to the memorial the other night, the Katrina Memorial. It was very, very powerful.
I can imagine.
Also on a ghost tour, so it was a little bit weird, but it's a cool memorial.
All right, Dave Aranda yesterday met with the media and had a lot to say, of course, about not only his football team, but Ole Miss. And, again, preparations for tonight's game with the Sugar Bowl and Ole Miss in Baylor.
When looking at the tape from Ole Miss's offense, what sticks out to you the most about their offense that could pose problems for you? And when it comes to Matt Corral, what do you see from him, and do you think he could be a good QB at the next level?
Appreciate the question. When I look at their offense, I see the success on the first play of the drive, the new and 10 play. And so the study that we did with that would be, if Ole Miss has 4 or more yards on that new and 10 play, they're scoring touchdowns 50% of the time in those drives. They're scoring, period, 60-some% of the time. If that new and 10 play goes for 3 or less yards, they're scoring, 20-some% of the time. They're scoring touchdowns like 15% of the time. And so, it just shows that once they get going, it's very hard to stop with the tempo and the play selection and their athletes in space. And so there is some more time allotted for us, specifically for this game as a defense, to adjust for that and to practice that. And we're hoping that helps, I think the ability to keep it simple and so that we can line up and have some success on our one-on-ones is really what it's going to come down to, And then when I look at Matt Corral, I just see a competitor. I see a winner. I see someone that wills his team. I think in today's age, a guy his caliber, staying with it and playing in this game, I think speaks a lot. And so excited to be able to see him. Just love college football and love competitors, and I think he's a great one.
Coach, just in terms of, I know earlier in the week you had mentioned that Gary was progressing and looking better and better and back to his old self. So in that same vein, is there a definitive yes or no to whether or not he'll be starting tomorrow?
Appreciate the question. Yeah, Gary will start, and he's been, I think from when we started, the practice prep for this game, it's the first time really he has opened up. The first time he was transferring weight, and I think So with that became some adjustments that he had to make, because he was maybe trying to protect, or maybe not sure, or he had to relearn kind of the correct fundamentals and all of it. And so there was some of that. Really, that was the first week, though. And I think since then it's just progressed. And, last week really had a great week. And then this week it's like, we're in week 5 or week 6. It's like he never left. And, yesterday was just way impressive. He's been open up, running full speed, showing burst, showing change direction, making throws from one hash to the far sideline. So excited for him. There's a look in his eye, and I know his heart's on fire too. So excited for his opportunity, and I know he's ready for it.
I'm sorry, I think you touched on this loosely here, but regarding opt-outs for these games, what has allowed you guys to remain intact? And would you be in favor of some type of structure that kind of really encouraged players or held them more accountable to play in these bowl games?
No, that's a good question. I appreciate that. I think for us, it starts all the way back with just recruiting and, finding and, I guess first of all, just knowing the type of program that you want to be, then finding kids that align with that program, and parents as well. And then I think, talking your values, and more importantly, living out your values. And then when you get your kids on campus, it's really spend the time to get to know them. And I just feel like there's been programs I've been in and staffs I've been on where it's and I've been a part and parcel of this too. So there's been a for sure growth just with me of where you can just be so focused on ball and so focused on the wins and losses that you don't really see, hear, or value the people that are doing it for you. And I think that leads to that leads to bad things. And so I think to keep the focus on the people and to see your people and to do your best to hear them out is what we try to do, and I know a lot of folks try to do. I think even with that being said, you've got family members, you've got third parties that maybe if there's a reality on the field, there's a different version of it that they're seeing, and so then that's coming into play. And so I think it's a difficult situation. I think all that we can do is really try to get a right fit for who we are, and get to know your people, continue to see them in the ups and downs, and appreciate them, because it's really a player's game.
Hey, Dave. Obviously, Ole Miss offense puts a lot of stress on your defense. Does it also put a little stress on the offense to keep up or answer?
That's a good question. I think your question is really. I see it as just so different, such a difference in styles, right? And so I think if I were to put your question that way, right, I think it's just very important for us to be us, and for us to not, get out of our lane of what we do well. And so I think, offensively for us, to move the ball and run the ball, establish line of scrimmage, to get the 8th and 9th guy involved in the box, and so that there are opportunities for big pass plays behind them. To use movement in the pocket and get our quarterback out on the perimeter where there's a run or throw option. And then I think the ability to use motion shifts to try to get the looks or the adjustments that we want. I think those things will lead to those are kind of process things that I think will lead to the results or outcome that we're hoping for. But we have to execute that stuff well. and we really can't get outside of that lane, we're going to have to score in the red zone. I think that's going to be a huge piece. And, when a couple weeks back when we're really working and kind of humming right on offense, we were finishing drives and scoring touchdowns. And I think, these past couple weeks, there's been a lot of movement from 20 to 20, and we've got to be able to close the deal. And I think that goes with process and execution as well.
Hey, Coach, after this recent wave of realignment, does this game mean more as a Big 12 versus SEC game? Do you feel any extra pressure because of that to represent the conference well?
I appreciate the question. Specifically, I don't. Now, I can see for people that may be associated with Baylor or our league, I could see that view, and I can understand that. I just think for us, just that whole thing's got nothing to do really with what's going to happen today. That's going to put us in the best situation to play our best, tomorrow night. And so it's a good question, though. I can see all of that. Some of that is stuff to think about, after the game maybe, or hopefully, but I think in the lead up to the game, there's, that would be looked at as a distraction.
That's Dave Aranda, Baylor football coach. Again, that was yesterday morning. Last time we had a chance to hear from anybody, whether Ole Miss or Baylor as well. 20 minutes with Dave Aranda. Lane Kiffin went about 6, and we had Neil McCready on yesterday, and he kind of talked about how he kind of shut it down, and because a lot of things were about football, and Lane Kiffin's not going to answer much about that, but he will philosophically on things from the playoff to NIL to much, much more. 21-7 now, Utah leads Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, and they're in the second quarter as well. So Penn State, again, lost to Arkansas. We're going to give you our predictions, 24-10. Kentucky, nice run for Stoops, 20, and Iowa 17. Oklahoma State, 37-35, beat Notre Dame, and as I mentioned, just gave you the Utah score as well. And, in fact, Ohio State scored, and then I'm just now told that Utah just ran the kickoff back for a touchdown, 97 yards. Oh, my goodness. So it's 28-14 at a shootout in the Rose Bowl. Paul Catalina, you give me yours for tonight with Ole Miss and also Baylor.
I'm going to pick Baylor in this game. I think that it's going to be very, very close, but I think that their ability to run the ball and right at Mississippi and not really and Ole Miss's ability or non-ability to really stop the run consistently, I think that's the one thing that tips in their favor, but this thing is going to be good.
Yeah, I picked against Baylor plenty of times this year and been wrong. I'm not going to do it this time. I am going to pick Baylor. I went very much back and forth on this because I do worry a bit about the Baylor secondary. And if Matt Corral gets cooking, that does concern me. I also, don't feel great about Gary Bohannon and what to expect there. I mean, I know Gary's good enough to win this game. I also know he can be bad enough to lose this game too, So I'm curious to see with as much time as he's had off. I mean, they definitely had the edge in the quarterback battle. There's not even a question about that. But I do like a lot of other areas of Baylor's game. I don't know. This has been a special team, and I'm going Baylor with slight edge, but, obviously could see it going either way.
I think I said 30-26 Baylor. I do think it's going to be a very important game. I think both teams were trying to break thresholds with the 11 wins for Ole Miss or 12 wins for Baylor. I just feel like Baylor's handled this very well, the business trip, and so has Ole Miss. I think, I've heard this scuttle that some of them were on Bourbon Street. I don't care about any of that. Let them have some fun. I know the COVID thing and all that, but I just think both teams, though, this is a critical win for not just getting to 11 or 12 wins, but also for setting the table for next year.
Well, and Ole Miss is a 1-point favorite. So to say that you think it's going to be a close game or pick either side, I don't think anybody can really, jump on that at all. I mean, it's literally like 50.9% to 49.1%, so everybody feels like this will be a close one. I just hope that it is. Yeah, I hope we get a good game.
I do too. And Paul will be here along with others here. Armstrong, Jack, and we'll drop in with a post-game show following the game. It's going to take a little while to get from the Dome to back here at the Marriott in the Arts District. By the way, Dennis Moore, Cinderella, lost both her shoes and her dress last night, but it was good, though. She had a chance at the ball, and that's a great point. That's a part of getting themselves a chance. And if they lost their dress and shoes, what the hell did Michigan lose? Then my goodness, they filed some charges. Armstrong Sims, thank you. Jack McKenzie, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke. I'm David Smoke. Thanks to Avery and the great staff here at the Marriott Arts District. We're not done. Back after the game. Good night for now from New Orleans, Louisiana on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.